everybody. Welcome to the start of our show. Now, our first guest is an author, and she's written this book. It's called Sid Arthur. Please welcome Ellen Frankel. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Now, you've written this book, Sid Arthur, but you told me that when you go out and do book readings that you usually start off with a story. So why don't you go ahead and tell us what that is?
Sure. Well, people often say, what's a Jubu? What's with the whole Jewish Buddhist thing? So I think a nice story is in order. So there's a famous story about a Jewish mother who schleps to the Himalayas in search of meeting a famous guru. She travels by plane, by train, and rickshaw to make it to a monastery in Nepal. When she gets there, she's schwitzing. She's exhausted, but she's committed, and she's wearing sensible shoes. So she knocks on the monastery door, and she makes a request to meet with this guru. But the old monk says that's impossible. The guru is meditating high on a cave in a mountaintop and cannot be disturbed. She begs and begs, I must meet this guru. Finally, he agrees, but says you must follow these 3 rules. The meeting must be brief. You must bow deeply upon meeting the guru. You're only allowed to say 8 words to him. She agrees and says a silent prayer to herself that her years of working with a personal trainer will finally pay off and somehow get her up this mountain. She hires a Sherpa, she hires a yak, she makes the grueling trek. When she gets there, she can't hardly move, but she harnesses all her energy. She remembers clearly what the old monk told her, so she chooses her 8 words carefully. She approaches the cave, bows deeply, and says, Sheldon, it's your mother. Enough already, come home.
How about that, everybody? I was hoping that you were going to say, please, please, please watch the Steve Katsos show.
Well, that comes next. When you reach enlightenment, that's all you can watch.
Yeah, you mentioned Jubu. It's funny because I actually have never heard that, but this is something that gets talked about. And it was an interesting fact that you told me about people who are Jewish that become Buddhist.
Yeah, actually, Jubus are, or Boo Jews, whichever way. We want to make sure anyone who wants to be first can be there. 30% of all Western Buddhists are actually Jewish, and many of the prominent Buddhist teachers in the West are Jews by birth. So there's a lot of reasons why that's so, but it does make for a very confusing meal. Corned beef, tofu, you don't know which one.
Now, let's talk about Sid Arthur, the book, because I know that it's excited to be here. We are on over in the UK and overseas. A lot of people are seeing this, and they're hearing about you for the first time. So let's tell them what Sid Arthur is all about. Okay,
so Sid Arthur, the original Sid Arthur, which many people might know, was the historical Buddha. And the historical Buddha lived in Siddhartha, lived in a palace and had every extravagance, but he left that world to seek enlightenment. And he ultimately became known as the Buddha, which means one who is awake. And then he spent his whole life teaching that everyone has the potential to awaken. My book is 2,500 years later in the cloistered world of suburbia. Meet Sid Arthur. She's a Jewish suburban woman who's potentially awake, but likes to start her day with a strong cup of coffee just in case. So it really looks at what happens. She's just had the empty nest. Her diet's off track. She thought she could find happiness at Bloomingdale's, and she's thinking, there might be something more. So it really looks at what does the spiritual search look like today through suburban eyes, and also in a culture that is so consumer-oriented that even spirituality has become this commodity to be marketed. I have a friend who said to me, Ellen, I'm finally ready to learn to meditate. I said, great. She said, where can I buy a good meditation kit? I was like, find a quiet place, close your eyes, and breathe. That's it. But we go shopping for things. So it really looks at how to get past that and go deep within one's own self.
Great.
Rather than looking outside.
So this is your first work of fiction?
It's my first work of fiction.
Fantastic. We hope you do great with it. Before we go, there was a story that you had mentioned about some monks that were staying with you.
Oh, very funny weekend. About 12 years back, some Tibetan monks were celebrating an exhibit at a museum with items on loan from the Dalai Lama. They stayed at my house. So I kind of had a little inkling that a book would come of this at some point. So you have monks, I'm serving them brown rice and tofu, and maybe a little corned beef, a little bagels. And at one point, being the good Jewish mother, I said, you've eaten, can I do any laundry for you? And they said, yes. I thought they were going to bring me laundry. They took off their robes. They said, can you wash them? And I remember I held up my tide and I said, tide for all your monastic needs. And then everything in Buddhism is all not attached and impermanent. I said, I'm washing on permanent press. I know nothing's permanent, but I'm good. I mean, all is impermanent.
It's
So
like
it was
when I used to come home from college and I give my mom my laundry, I just take it off and give it to her too.
well, someone once asked me when the monks took off their robes, boxers or briefs?
What was the answer?
Boxers.
Boxers. I thought you were going to say neither. All right, everybody. The book is Sid Arthur. The author, Ellen Frankel. We'll be right back right after this. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you so much.